Yeah, we gotta go.
Okay, guys.
That's your seat.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, my name is Kailash. Remember Kailash and put a K. It's the name of a mountain in the Himalayas. For non-Indians, I see a lot of Indian faces here. But actually, I was not supposed to give this paper. I did this paper with my student who is in London, University of London. And he had a family emergency. So last minute, I came here last week for a conference. He was supposed to come. So I'm proxying. I don't think I'll do justice, but last minute things. I said, all right, I'll just hop in because we thought of this very recently. And so a lot of things, it's all raw. So I would appreciate there is a thread going on with all the email addresses. So if you could kindly put it in, and I'd like some feedback, I can give it to Vimal. And I told him also, he said, I want a picture of everything, please, I'm missing because his mother is sick in the hospital. I said, I will make sure we have everything, with all the discussions, whatever questions, and I'll get back to him. But he has a telecom background. I actually, typically, I studied with an anarchist. I am basically a development scholar, development studies scholar, economics. And I studied with an anarchist at Yale University called Jim Scott, who absolutely hates states. You know, so all his writings are, what is it that the state does wrong, you know? And then I met Amartya Sen, the famous development, economist, as you will know. So he also changed some of my ideas, and he said, yes, Indian state has been doing wrong all these years. So it's time for us to reflect upon that. So that's where I came from, that what is the state can or cannot do as the intervening variable, as I can go over there. So that being the quick introduction. Okay, now so this is the research question I have, is that could digital economy contribute toward more balanced and non-enclave equitable and equitable economic development growth in India? So basically, I'm trying to say what is this enclave, why I'm saying enclave? That means it has a small portion of the population which was educated, which was ready to hop into the outsourcing, really benefited from this information revolution. But majority of Indian group has not. So it's become very enclave and insulated. And in our paper, we have given data that how much has it affected and how much it has not, you know, and how it is Bangalore based, or like Silicon Valley of India, Bangalore based, or typically elite based or educated people taking advantage of it. Now, why non-enclave playing field is not level? Now, this is a big question here. My C has gone there. So this is a big question because we followed some literature like Chalmers Johnson, Smitty, and also Theda's Gospel's states, the role of states and stuff, where we actually looked at how in Western context, state has played more of a leveling role, and how in non-Western context it has not happened. So in the paper we bring some examples. For example, the Indian colonialism, the British colonialism in India. Now, why British colonialism in India, when it came, it did not change the social stratification. So pretty much left the Indian feudalism, the inequitable or unequal states, the stratified society intact. It did not dismantle it. It said, okay, you produce, I don't care what system you have, as long as you provide us this much taxes. That was the British way of doing things. Whereas, for example, Japanese, colonization of Taiwan. So the Japanese went in and they said, no, first we level the playing field. So they basically leveled it, broke the back of the feudal lords, then they distributed the land, then they said, okay, now you grow your crops, now I'll pay. So what I'm trying to say is there is an unintended consequence of colonialism, in the context of countries like India, which actually translates to an enclave-like development whenever development happens. So an Indian state, as we all know, followed a pattern which is highly import substitution, industrialization after the British left, and did not do any change, major change to the social stratification. For example, Indians introduced land consolidation. This is, I'm talking about 40s and 50s. And Indians said, you know, our state, we don't want to do anything with the external capital. We have been exploited, pillaged, drained in colonial times. So we will do everything that we want to, self-reliance or whatever the industry, the Indians decided, as some of you will know. But then what happened in that economy is they did not compete with the rest of the world. So when the Japanese developmental state model, like with Japan or Taiwan or Singapore and Hong Kong, were trying to use their labor to involve in the state process, then moved to the import substitution. The Indians depended on import substitution to begin with. So two things happened in Indian context. Historically, we have put it in the paper, to put it in this context, that how state or labeling factor is so important. Now, historically, in this specific, in Indian case, what they did is, capital was so little, you know, very little capital. Population was humongous, you know. So, but they adopted capital-intensive industrialization or import substitute industrialization, where the capital was needed a lot and the labor would be absorbed very little. All right, it's just diametrically opposite, you know, in strategy of planning. They adopted Mahalanobis planning. So majority of the population at the time of industrialization or social mobilization was deprived. So when the development happened, even after British left, British did not change the legacy. British left the social stratification. But even after the British left, the Indians followed a stratification system, a social mobilization system that did not change the stratification. So in other words, what I'm saying is we have to keep in mind why, whenever a growth happens, whether it's manufacturing or whether it's IT revolution, whatever, why the benefits do not accrue and to the general public or distributed evenly, why it becomes so partial. All right. So now, how to level the playing field? So here I already have explained. I said it is basically, sorry, what am I doing? It's basically the state. The state, the government has to level it. There is no other way. See, in the Western context, there has been a what you call very synchronized development between capitalism and democracy. You know, democracy provides the free entrepreneurship, capitalism provides the resource. They both go hand in hand, and the state plays more what you call market conforming way of intervening. So the growth has happened some way, and it's very developed. In the developing context, as we have used a lot of authors, it is basically state has to take a good, not only a good leadership role, but it has to be the stepper, maker, dismantler, when is to do the lead, when not to lead, when to intervene, when not to intervene. So it is basically the state. Now, this is where we are actually lacking. In the paper, we could not do the comparative relations that we wanted to do from BRICS countries. We initially had proposed Brazil, Russia, India, of course, and China and South Africa. Now that data is important because we wanted to see how, in comparative context, India is in the information revolution world, and how the countries like India, what kind of strategies they are adopting to make the growth more equitable of information, of digital economy, so that it spreads more to the people in an even way. All right? Okay. Now, so what I'm trying to say is, there is a reason we have focused on mobile and broadband technology, because mobile and broadband is humongous. You know, we have a whooping 889 million current mobile users. Rural, we have 292 million users in rural India, and the revenue is expected to be $400 billion. This is humongous impact of mobile and broadband. So government is trying to recalibrate, plan, and resource do the resource allocations and all that. So somebody was asking the other day, what is the government role? I said, the way I would see the government role is, what we define is like intelligent allocation of scarce resources. Right? That is what the government has to do, and government, whether it's lacking or it is succeeding in this, is what is this paper trying to address. Huh? Now, this is the methodology. Yeah? In this paper, we are focusing the arrow going down here. This is the causal variable, and international state is the intervening variable. So when I say here international state as the intervening variable, I'm talking about the typical Max Weber's definition of state, or like state as the all-powerful, the most legitimate means of force that can be available at the level of the state. So this state intervenes between digital economy as the independent variable and the effect it has on economic development. So this is the way we're looking. But if you really flip it, you can go also this as the independent variable, that becomes a dependent variable, and state stays in the middle. But what we're trying to argue in the paper is actually how India as a state has intervened positively and negatively, and how over the years it has worked and not worked, and then how it is now that digital economy is so big. What is it that it has happened to the economic growth in a more equitable or level playing field? All right? Okay. Now this is all data we are talking about. This is all Vimal, but this is humongous to look at the impact of digital economy on Indian economy, because you see this out of $100 billion that is being estimated, IT is 88 billion. Huh? That is huge, no? And the next point, you see it is actually the largest market. What I did is, after I studied and got a grant to go do research in several countries, I actually started a software company with few students. I said, I'm an economist, I don't know, these students were studying all engineering stuff. So they went and started a software company in India, and we grew big to the extent that I could take leave from my work and go help them and go around the world to get them the contracts, the network that I have. So what I'm saying is, this is the largest outsourcing market, and I have a childhood friend who has become humongous. He's like the 5th largest software company in Bangalore, and he started very small with 2-3 of his students. So it is the biggest outsourcing.
Are you sure 100 billion? It seems very little to me.
Yes, it is. Well, this is the estimate I got from the Indian planning.
Maybe you are missing a zero there.
Say that again, you put another zero. But this is the 2012 project.
True, but $100 billion for service sectors in India, this is very little.
Well, this is what I got from the financial. I will double check with them, email each other. I'll appreciate that. Because this is, I got from the planning commission's, Indian planning commission things. Could be wrong, we'll check with I'll double check. Because 88 will not do it mistake twice. If we put 88 billion there, that's what I'm thinking about. But it is the largest outsourcing market. Like, China is the manufacturing capital, India is the software capital, kind of stuff. Now the taxes from the companies and its employees and the job creations that they have made is also humongous. We have a data. I cannot give you I didn't put a number there, but it is since 1990, since the liberalization happened, it's just humongous in terms of the taxes that into the exchequers they are paying. Right? Now, they have in the process developed a high management skills like the Western counterparts, and employ and have the industry is very competitive that way, in terms of support that. Now, they do provide one of the, I think, things these women here will recognize, because they have led the largest employment women as any sector did in India, after the information revolution started. So, and youths, of course, are inspired and absorbed, whoever are educated, but the women are specifically encouraged by the big 2, 3, 4 companies that we have, and in terms of women employment and encouraging women, men-women relationship has been huge, actually. Okay. Now here maybe there is okay. This so in the broadband, we did not find the broadband making as much forays as the mobile, but still the report 2010 report I saw, it is the 3rd fastest growth they have, next to China and US, and it has added 2.5 million new broadband users in 2011, and the growth has been extremely consistent from 2007 on to 2010. It ranks 13 now in terms of broadband category, but it will perhaps hit the top 10 category if India's plan, that's a big if, a lot of hassles they always do, that is, if they have the massive $300 billion fiber optic backbone they want to lay down. If that is the case, they could be in that category, top 10 category. Now, as contrast with the mobile, this is a humongous jump. You have, it's escalating up to 14 to 15 million subscribers every month, and despite this, the government has not been able to meet its target. It's only less than 50% of its target of 20 million in 2010. So here again, it is the government. The government is slowing the process. The government's corruption. I'll come to that in a minute when I talk about constants. But this is the second point is important. Yes.
Back to the 3 minutes again.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, so I'll skip. But this point is important because India, as you know, 70–80% are in the rural sector. Right? It is an economy primarily geared on the rural. How much can you really improve the rural sector or not? So the problem they have having is because the rural sector has been so badly deprived from the overall economic growth, it's become tremendously difficult in resource terms to get into the rural sector and improve it. Because initially projections for 50–60 years has been so unequal in emphasizing the urban growth. I will skip a lot of this since I have 3 minutes. I'll go to the okay. I'll quickly say the inflation is about. These are the constraints which is stopping the spread of the equitable growth. Stopping the impact that should spread, and tremendous economic restraints or constraints. Inflation is almost 10%, about 8% in rural, and about 10.3% in urban sector, averaging almost 10% overall. Very bad infrastructure, so the economy overheats, and then there are too many cars, there are very few roads. So from water to communication infrastructure is lacking everywhere. Now, education, despite the fact that there is a big growth, when I left in the 80s for the US, it was almost 40–50% illiteracy, but now it is almost still 20–25% illiteracy in terms of education and stuff. Inequality has reduced in real terms, but if you look at it, the rich poor divide has increased. And corruption is one of the biggest things that we all must keep in mind, because recently there was a big scandal that my Indian friends will know that Raza, there is a minister who was involved in a 2G spectrum scandal to the extent that it cost the exchequer almost $40 billion loss. He's in jail now. And that is, I'll just quickly skip all this, but the corruption is another thing that can go if we focus on e-governance. And if e-governance can be made efficient, we would be able to do a lot of changes in terms of record keeping, so corruption will be less. So government will be more efficient in terms of getting the feedback from people, emails and all that. And people also could complain. So this is one of the keys in terms of equitable impact or making the growth more equitable whenever there is a sector that is doing so well as digital economy. So, I mean, if you talk of land or e-learning and all that. So, I'll just come to quickly conclusion and then maybe we'll have some time. I did this last minute batch. I'm not feeling very comfortable and happy about the presentation.
Yeah, we're out of time.
Okay, can I just quickly come to 2 minutes? Before I leave, two things I want to leave the audience with, think about. One is that for countries like India, where it is so difficult resource-wise to lay down the cables and make the whole country what you call ubiquitous computation, savvy. But mobile is easier. It doesn't need the cable. So the focus, and in mobile, the thing to keep in mind, it's easy to numerate a guy, to teach him 1 to 0 number, easy. You cannot literate him, make him literate, but at least he can punch the number, say, hey, the weather is bad and such place, so I'll take my fish to that market. Or the crops can be according, so mobile is the future. But I want to finish with a positive note because, see, every country that I am going to lecture or get feedback is aging. Harvard, I met this guy, David Bloom, the demographer, the economist at Harvard. Brilliant studies he's doing, if we believe it. When I left the country, this will be my last country. When I left the countries in the 80s, the population bomb was about to explode in the face of India. But now it's not the population, but poverty becomes the real problem, because what has happened with the population is the estimate with David Bloom and all these guys are doing, that by 2015 and 20, India will have 300 to 400 billion people in the most productive age category, that will be from 15 to 35. If India can equip these people, train these people, then it will be a big power to reckon with. So it is basically, what the message I'm trying to deliver, it boils down to what the government can or cannot, should or should not do. That is going to make the change, and then only perhaps countries like India can compete in real terms categories so far the digital economy is concerned. No question?
I'll cut 2 questions.
Yes,
What's the dominant force for the behind moving the wireless technology into the rural area? Is the private sector or the government?
It is the private sector.
Okay, so that's now my next question.
Yeah.
That's why if I understood your thesis here, you want the government to do something. Is that true? And when we discuss IT, we differentiate between 3 paradigms. When we talk about, regardless how do you define digital economy, like one relationship we have what we call determinism, that digital economy or the IT diffusion determines the outcome. And no one can change that. That's determinism, which is, I disagree with this theory, but it seems to me you want to follow the strategic choice. The strategic choice and the diffusion of digital economy dictate that there is dominant actor in the economy that make a difference. In this case, you assume that the government make a difference.
Yes.
Which is many theorists in the IT field, they don't agree with this. So what we left with, what we call the emergent paradigm. Emergent paradigm, that there is multiple forces, okay, they create dominant, the third paradigm, which is most of us agree with. So in this case, if I want to give quick advice, I would say the government should get out of the digital economy. They shouldn't be involved. They should be in the business of education.
Okay.
They should work in the constraints rather than on the main force that drives the digital economy.
Excellent point, sir. Okay, two points I'll tell you. When the liberalization happened, in 90s, government did play a massive role in leaving them alone. so that these 3, 4, 5 companies which are doing massive outsourcing software and stuff could grow. Actually, government did. But then the problem with Indian government, I'll agree with the emerging paradigm thing, because what is it that's doing that's important? Because that is, for example, the BSNL, the mother networks that is provides the cables and support in India. Unlike that, I was talking to my student in London. He says BT does not intervene. BT keeps the line, so there is no redundancy. Another company is not coming doing another line. BT charges a fee, whatever, and BT also makes the market competitive. So that is the vestiges where I could not cover in the conclusion. Vestiges of the old mindset that no, this BSNL, which is the mother network, which is government public sector, will have the monopoly, and it acts more as a competitor than a facilitator. And that is the argument in the paper. If government becomes a facilitator, gets out of the way as you are saying, then these private sectors will be more efficient, will be doing better. And I agree. Perhaps we'll email you and stuff.
I think we'll have to leave all the questions. If you have any more to talk to the speaker after the session, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
20 minutes for the last speakers. 20 minutes. Well,